You know, some stories, they don't start at the beginning. They start at the end, with the silence after all the screaming has stopped. We're about to piece together a night of just absolute terror. A night that was only supposed to be a simple school trip.
It's the question everyone asks, right? After something awful happens. But the answer here, well, you're not going to find it in any police report. The truth is much, much older and way more evil.
Think about that for a second. Three friends decide to take a walk from their hotel to a nearby lake. Simple. But only one of them comes back. The pieces of what happened that night, they just don't add up.
So let's go to that morning. Just try to imagine it. You wake up, but not in your hotel bed. You're surrounded by the flashing red and blue lights of police cars. And over there, on the ground, are two white sheets. Underneath them are your best friends. And you're the only one left. A boy named Ayu, completely unshocked, totally unable to explain the impossible things you've just seen.
I mean, that's the logical conclusion, isn't it? You've got two bodies, what looks like a crime scene. So the police start looking for a human suspect, a rational motive. They file their reports, they search for a killer. But they were looking in all the wrong places, and for the wrong thing.
So how did this whole nightmare even start? Let's rewind just a few hours. The school bus they're on breaks down out of nowhere, so they're stranded. The teachers find this remote hotel for the night, a place just surrounded by these dark, imposing woods. For three friends, though, this little problem, it felt like an adventure.
So from their hotel room window, these three friends, Ayu, Aman, and Rohan, they spot this lake kind of shimmering in the distance. And they'd heard these stories about other students who became legends after sneaking out on a trip. The plan seemed so simple. Just wait for the guard to fall asleep, sneak out to the lake, grab a quick photo, and get back before anyone even knows they're gone. Just a harmless bit of fun.
But forests, they play tricks on you in the dark. That lake, the one that looks so close from their window, it was like a mirage. They just kept walking, and the path just seemed to dissolve into this endless maze of trees. And that initial excitement, it started to curdle into real fear.
Yeah, their reality just completely flipped. The quick little trip turned into an hour-long ordeal. The fun adventure became a freezing, terrifying mess. And the one thing they could rely on, their phones, were totally useless. No signal. That's when they knew. This was a terrible, terrible mistake, and they had to turn back.
So now they're scared. They're using their phone flashlights, trying to find their way back. Aframan and Ayu are kind of leading the way, just a little bit ahead of Rohan. They walk for a second in total silence, and then they turn around to say something.
Just gone. 1 second, he's right there behind them. The next, nothing but darkness. They start calling his name, but the forest just eats the sound. Panic starts to set in, real panic.
And then, through the silence, they hear a strange noise. It's this scraping, rhythmic sound, kind of like someone is digging, frantically digging in the dirt nearby. They couldn't just leave Rohan, so terrified, they start pushing through the trees, following that awful sound. And this was the moment their night completely shattered. Hiding behind a bush, they saw him. It was Rohan, on his hands and knees, just clawing at the dirt, digging what looked like a shallow grave. They called out his name, and he slowly turned his head. But the boy who looked back, it wasn't their friend. His eyes were just pits of pure, empty black.
Aman, trying to make sense of it, reaches out and puts a hand on his shoulder. And this thing wearing Rohan's face, lets out a scream and throws Aman across the clearing with his insane strength. Then, just as suddenly, it starts to shake and just collapses, unconscious. Rohan was back. But the horror? It was only just beginning.
So as Ayu's trying to wake up Rohan, he looks over at Aman, who's just sitting there on the ground, head down. Then Aman's head snaps up, and his eyes are now completely black too. Before they can even react, he stands up and just bolts, running deeper into the woods towards a dark shape they hadn't seen before, a crumbling, dilapidated old house.
They had to follow him, right? So Ayu and a now conscious Rohan step into this derelict house. The air is just thick with the smell of decay. They follow this faint, whispering sound, and what they see in the dim light of their phones, it just defies all logic. A man was just floating in the middle of the air, unconscious, like he was being held up by invisible strings. And she was there with him, an old woman. Her face was this mask of absolute horror, skin just hanging loosely from her bones. And her eyes, those same empty black pits. As they just stood there, frozen in terror, she started to come down the staircase, not walking, but crawling, head first, her arms and legs moving like some kind of giant insect.
They ran. I mean, what else could they do? They didn't look back. They just ran blindly through the forest. That horrifying image of that creature burned into their minds. They ran and they ran until they finally burst out of the trees and found themselves standing on the shore of the very lake they had set out to find in the first place.
They collapsed at the edge of the water, just totally exhausted. But it wasn't over. Something in the lake, some unseen force, grabbed Rohan. Ayu could only watch, completely helpless, as his friend was dragged under the surface. He struggled, and then the struggling got weaker until there was nothing. The shock was just too much. Ayu collapsed. See, the police, they were missing the real story. But the locals, oh, they knew. They knew about the old woman who lived in that house years and years ago. How some villagers, wanting her land, attacked her, murdered her, and threw her body into the lake. And ever since, they say her vengeful spirit has haunted those woods, lashing out at anyone who dares to trespass on her land.
So in the end, you're left with two stories from that night that just can't both be true. For the rest of the world, it's a tragic, unsolved double murder, a cold case file sitting in a cabinet. But for the people who live there, it's just a chilling reminder of the curse, a warning to never, ever go near that lake after dark.
Which really brings us to one final, haunting question. If you found yourself lost in those woods, in the dead of night, who would you be more afraid of? The killer the police are looking for, or the one they will never, ever find?